We turn now to a 5-acre parcel nestled in the sweet spot between Williamsburg and Greenpoint, and yet it's called Bushwick Inlet Park. This isn't some, hipster joke that you're just not too cool enough to get, but there's nothing cool about the price tag. $225 million and counting, which hasn't stopped the residents of Greenpoint and Williamsburg from insisting on getting the much-needed park they were promised.
Well, what started as a neighborhood action for an expanded park is now something of a political hot potato. It's inspired community demonstrations, a David versus Goliath style battle with a big developer, and the New York Times write-up questioning the viability of a project that cost nearly $250 million in development and is less than 25% near completion. Now, have we gone too far to turn around, or should the city just cut its losses? Kim Fraser, I think, is of one of those opinions, and she is a member of Friends of Bushwick Inlet Park. Thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So what's your organization's vision for the park?
We want the 21 acres that was promised in the 2005 rezoning. It was a commitment by the city. We did not want to have a wall of 75 towers on our waterfront. We've always not had enough green space, even when it was just old industrial Greenpoint. And we just felt like, okay, no, we never said okay, but it is being rezoned. You will have a wall of 50-story towers, and we're going to give you this 28-acre park so that it'll be remediation for the density that is coming to this neighborhood, that's already arrived in this neighborhood. So it's quite shocking that now they're just saying, oops, sorry, we forgot to buy it when it was cheaper back in '05, and oops, sorry, we don't have any more money. Yeah. It's just not right. It's totally, I consider it a moral issue, because I've been there since 1980. I've been a community activist, environmental activist, and I raised my son. He's 33 years old now. We never had access to the waterfront the whole time. And now we can start to see it a little bit in these little 1-acre parks, and it's a very tempting thing. And now it's about to go, no, sorry, unless you have your living room on the waterfront, with the glass windows looking out, you are not going to really have access to public space.
Well, you mentioned a second ago that it's sort of a moral obligation, but we actually did reach out to the Parks Department, and they didn't send a rep, but they sent a statement to BK Live saying that New York Parks continues to take substantive steps towards the completion of Bushwick Inlet Park, which will bring more public green space to the Williamsburg Greenpoint waterfront. So you've already got 1 acre, you've got a pretty awesome soccer field out there.
Right.
There's a big old storage facility right next to it, and then a little marshy area beyond. So if the money fell from the sky, if the developer grew a conscience and said, oh, here, have this space, what would it look like besides this lovely soccer field?
Well, it would be, right to begin with, it would just be more green. I really, that part of it, grass, just get some grass seed, clear it off. But the big issue in Greenpoint has always been the remediation necessary to make it into a park. Right. The whole edge of Greenpoint and Williamsburg, it made the American Revolution, Industrial Revolution. Yeah. Right. We needed those factories. They helped build the United States. But in the process of creating metal and rope and cement and all the things that created the United States and had it grow the way it did, they also polluted the land. So that is another part of the problem. After the price tag of acquiring the missing parcel comes the price tag of remediating the land. Yeah. And that's a very expensive thing, because you can't have children digging in the dirt, and underneath the dirt is toxic stuff. Like Red Hook, they closed, 4 ball fields because they tested the sand when the kids slid into third, and it was like, oops, this is toxic. So we don't, we can't have that happen. We got to clean it up first.
Yeah, that's a very scary to think of, that your kid is playing in a sandbox and they're being exposed to God knows what. Yeah,
but that being said, too, if there is all of that horrible stuff under there from the bad old days before we got our act together and took care of the environment more, is that enough to say, you know what, it's not worth the price tag if we're going to get these acres here and we could be putting kids in danger? Should we just investigate other possibilities? McCarran Park ain't so far away. You can just go over there.
Well, that is not big enough. If you've been there on any weekend when, it becomes the good weather season, it's so crowded that families have birthday parties there, they have anniversary parties, and they block off their little 26 square foot space. Like, this is our birthday party.
Yeah.
This is our anniversary party. And it's fantastic. I mean, it's like totally used. But if you didn't get there in time to block out your little 26 square foot of space, you don't have a space there. And our neighborhood is growing so much. This is what I feel like I want to shout from the rooftops to all the neighborhoods that are going to get rezoned now. Who's driving this plane? Who is making the plan just to stack people on top of each other, 50 stories in the air, and then walk away and not create any infrastructure on the bottom? And people don't stay in your apartment. You come down the elevator, you meet your neighbors, you communicate, you want to hang. Now you're about to get hit by a bike on one side, a car on the other, and there's just no place to really be a community. And our borough president came to our last rally, and I think he said a really beautiful, really honest thing. He said, in New York City, community spaces, public spaces, green spaces, that's where our diversity meets and comes together. Because no matter, where you live and how much you pay for your apartment, your condo, or how little you can pay, you all come together in the park. And that's where we feel like, I live in New York. Wow, you're excited about it. It's thrilling to see all these different people from around the world, all kinds of backgrounds. And I just feel like all of this stuff that's getting changed now, rezoned now, under the flag, the banner of affordable housing. Whether you live in affordable housing, and that's a whole nother issue of what is affordable housing, or you are lucky enough to live in one of these beautiful, luxurious apartments in the sky, you still want public space. You still don't just want to go up there, come down in your elevator, march off to the subway, squeeze in, and go off to your cube. There's more to life, and I think New York City is such a great city. There's no reason why we can't figure it out. We can have both. We can have affordable housing and we can have open space. And I think we're such a great city. We should lead the way. We should show the rest of the world how a densely populated, diverse city like this can have amenities for everybody, for the public, public amenities.
Okay, Kim, I have to tell you in all honesty, I'm like, I don't know what this fight is about. These people are clamoring for a park. They got a field there. There's a soccer field, but I was not on your side. To say $225 million later and then the thing won't even be done, then we got to make sure it's not killing the people who come there. And then I did more research, as we're apt to do, welcoming people here. And I saw numbers that you guys had from a study that you co-opted, that without this park space, the per capita open space for the fast-filling community of Williamsburg/Greenpoint will be among the lowest in the entire city. And sort of to add insult to that fact, there's also numbers that says Greenpoint suffers from the city's highest asthma rates. But moreover, and this is the last thing I'm going to pile on, I'm just saying, this is the things that help to change my mind, that you guys have the highest concentration in Williamsburg and Greenpoint of garbage transfer stations in the city, and they also house 2 small power facilities, 23 waste transfer stations, a sewage treatment plant, and Radiac, the city's only radioactive waste storage facility. Now, to all of this, you want to add a park? Why aren't you moving?
Exactly. That's what people say.
Yeah. But a park is going to balance those scales for all of those.
No, it's
waste
really not
transfer.
enough. It's not big enough
not
before
even
it's
enough.
even built.
Yeah.
But we have to start somewhere, and it was in the promise of the rezoning. So we're starting the fight right there, because this is not something we made up. This was a deal. This was a commitment by the city of New York to give us open space. So we want to win that first. But all of that other, pollution, I always say to people, we have the largest sewage treatment plant in the world, they've told us. Like, when you flush a toilet from 14th Street down to the end of Manhattan, you can thank Greenpoint for, cleaning it up and taking care of a very human issue.
Right. Well, I think what people get stuck with is that $225 million price tag at only, 30% or 25% completion? Let's talk about where did the money go?
Okay, exactly.
Then that will,
Let's talk about who made up that 225 million
Let's talk
price
about
tag.
it.
That is not what that land is worth. It's 11 acres. It has been storing paper. It's an M3 zone. It's industrial. No one I can imagine is going to come and pay to the owner that price tag for this land, especially when it's under this much controversy now, because we are not going to back up whoever buys that. If it's a mall developer or it's got to be something that fits in an M3. They're going to have to see us because this was promised to us, and we're not backing up because we have been taken advantage of for generations, way before even I got there. And it's about time that somebody did something for Greenpoint and Williamsburg that was for the people and not just for the bundles of money that get carted out of the neighborhood by developers and by landowners who just feel like, they hit the jackpot. They're on their way to wherever they want to go for the rest of their lives, and they don't really care. They're never going to look back. Even the developers, they come, they give you this beautiful presentation. They tell you how they're going to help your poor, polluted neighborhood. Almost saying, we don't know why you're still here, but since you are, thank God we've come to save the day and help you and develop our tower with a little sidewalk around it. And it will be public. We'll let you walk on the terrace.
We'll give you a couple of benches.
So to be clear then, is your fight with the Parks Department or is it with the developer who the New York Times characterizes holding this place for ransom, essentially?
No, my fight, I just want New York City. I want the city who made the commitment. Now we have Mayor Deblasio. Before that, it was the Bloomberg administration. I want them to figure it out, to do the right thing, because I think, and I've read and I watch, when New York City wants to do the right thing, when they need to come up with, no matter what the price tag is, and get a thing done, they know how to do it. They know how to go to the developers. They know how to go and dig for the money that they need to do. I'm not, I'm not a businessman. I don't know how to do that. I just know that the community needs this park that was promised, and I think that New York City can fulfill it. I don't believe that they can't.
So we're looking at this picture right now with the graphic that I suspect was projected by some of your people. Hey, Deblasio, where's our park? So now we're going to expand the conversation and welcome a New York City council member from the 33rd who represents portions of Greenpoint to say, is the price tag just too high now for this to go on?
No, it's not. For one thing, we don't know what the price tag is. It's a somewhat complicated story, but I think it's actually important to look at it in the very large historical perspective. For the last 20 years, every planning process that the city has undertaken, from a 197A process in the 90s that was community-driven, through the rezoning process in the 10 years ago, this area has always been said it's going to be a park. Every process has said this is going to be a park.
Since 2005.
Right, but even before that, going back to the 90s, every planning process we've ever had has said this is slated to be a park. In 2005, we actually mapped it to be a park. So if you go to the New York City zoning map, which is the official map of New York City that says what things are, this says Inlet Park on the map. Unfortunately, it doesn't become a park until the city actually acquires it. But I've actually done a fair amount of research also in recent months, and looking back to every press release and every article that came out in 2005 and what the Bloomberg administration was saying and what the city council was saying at the time was, hey, we're going to have a great 28-acre park. We got a huge rezoning out of it. Our community in Greenpoint is going to have tens of thousands of new residents living in high-rises along the waterfront. In addition to that, there's going to be new development that happens throughout the neighborhood as a result of that. Longtime residents are displaced. People lose affordable housing. The one big thing that the community got back as part of that process was this park. And it wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't, okay, maybe we'll try or something like that.
It's on the map.
No, it's on the map. I mean, this is a committed thing, explicitly committed. So whatever the price tag is, It has to be, because we can't undo the zoning. We can't undo the impacts that the community felt as a result of that rezoning. And the one thing that the city can do and needs to do is live up to the commitment to provide the benefit to the community, because in addition to all of that, this is about the credibility of New York City.
So who owns the land now? Because I'm sorry, everyone is going to
Yes.
get caught up with that price tag of $225 million,
Right.
which Kim made a great point that the land is, no one is going to come in and pay that amount of money in it. So A, who owns it right now?
Norm Brodsky, City Storage, owns the land right now.
Okay, so as Brian mentioned, the the New York Times article that said it is being held for ransom. To that you reply?
You know, the owner of the property owns it, but the city has committed to acquiring it for the last 10 years. So those are pretty clear terms. I also believe that the price tag that's thrown out there is pretty exaggerated. I don't know. I'm not a real estate lawyer.
That
I don't.
sounds like a small city to me,
If
so
you had to
it
put a
just-
number on it, what would you
Right.
say?
I would say it's much less, and it's valued. I believe that it should be valued at what the current zoning of it is. This is
Okay.
where it gets a little complicated. It's zoned as a manufacturing, low-rise heavy manufacturing. M3 is the term. What the owner is saying is that he wants to get the valuation as if it was zoned a luxury high-rise, so an R6, R8.
Yeah.
That's why he's saying it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, because if the land was actually zoned R6, R8,
Yeah.
that's what it would be worth. However, it's not. It's actually zoned M3. It's worth a lot less zoned as an M3 than an R6, R8.
So how or can eminent domain be applied to this situation at all?
It has to be, unless the owner and the city come together on an agreed price for acquisition. Then this is what really eminent domain is for. Eminent domain should be used when there is a clearly stated public good and a commitment on the part of the government, whether it's the city government or the state government, for something that is clearly in the public interest. A park is clearly in the public interest, and that's when eminent domain should be applied. This is a perfect instance of when eminent domain should be applied if the two sides can't come together around a price for acquisition.
So is the clock ticking then? If he says this is worth this much and the city says, dude, it's not even zoned for that, so
Right.
I don't know where you're getting your valuation. When does the clock run out on the eminent domain argument?
Clock doesn't run out on them. As far as I'm concerned, the clock does not run out on the eminent domain argument because it's still mapped as a park. So that's clearly a statement of the city's intent to make it one day a park. I think it's getting a little more complicated because the owner is now in talks or some type of agreement with a potential buyer.
Right.
I don't know what that
Who's gonna
buyer's
have
intention.
to see them.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
So
Okay, we're running out of time, and we do want to get some last words from you, but I can't help but think now, should something have been done in '05 then to secure it at that point, or was that not a question at that time?
Yes, it should have
Okay.
definitely been figured out then for $4 million. And then we would have it and we'd just be talking about how to clean it up and put, grass seed down. That was the big mistake. That I don't really understand. I honestly don't understand how that happened. Like how, that slipped.
Whose responsibility was that?
I wasn't at the table after, when it was,
Okay.
after it was rezoned. So I don't know how we, do you know? How
I
did?
mean, ultimately, it was I believe it was the Bloomberg administration. But I want to be clear, it was the City of New York's responsibility. So whether it was the Bloomberg administration or the Deblasio administration, it is still the City of New York, and we have to be accountable for the commitments that we make as a city. It's not just Mike Bloomberg versus Bill Deblasio. This is the City of New York making a commitment to its citizens, its taxpayers. And keeping its word. It's really, I think, ultimately about the credibility of the City of New York.
I think that people, just in the course of learning about this, people get hung up, whatever side they're on the fact that it was promised to the community. And there's a certain faction that says, you know what, you're not 5-year-olds, this isn't kindergarten, sometimes we can't come through on our promises, so guys just get over it, hang out in McCarran Park. And you came back with the real concrete ramifications that have come at the expense of this promise. So could you just lay out, it's beyond a promise. It's
Right.
actually, there have been real world ramifications for saying, this is happening to you, but you're going to get this in exchange, to answer those folks.
Well, as it stands now, Williamsburg-Greenpoint has a remarkably low amount of open space per person. So when we're going to get the 20 or 30,000 new people that are going to come with the towers on the waterfront,
Yeah.
that percentage is going to continue to decrease, that ratio. So, so this has a real impact in terms of the amount of open space that a community has. So it's not just grade school type stuff.
Right.
But you know what? I mean, the same principle that applied back then when we were in school, where our parents and our teachers told us to honor our promises, it's the same principle. I mean, you know, as that might sound naive, but you know, the same principle applies, that, you know, it has to do with credibility. I mean, honestly, if we're going to be going around to the rest of the city saying that the city, you know, the city of New York is proposing rezonings in East New York and in East Harlem, there's going to be a lot of commitments made, and those communities have to have confidence that the city is going to honor its commitments, or otherwise, why would they go along with it?
Yeah, honor their commitments and also be forward thinking, because it's not just the people who currently live there, but we're trying to think 20, 30, 50 years down the line. So
Absolutely.
we thank both of you for joining us, and we'll be keeping our eye on this, that's for sure.
Definitely.
Right, B. Vines?
Oh, yeah.